Well, hello there, friends. So today we're doing something a little different or a lot different. Today we're actually bringing in a special guest. So he is a viewer of my channel and he lives, an hour and a half away. And we've been on the phone and we've been chatting, getting along. So he asked if he can come by. So I'm going to host him today. So what we're doing is we're going to do interview style because he's got a lot of questions. And I thought, well, these questions might be helpful to all of you, the viewers, because a lot of you might even have the same questions. So I hope you get something out of this. So stick around to the end, and I promise you, you're going to really like it. Well, look who just showed up. What a surprise. How was that trip?
That's not bad. That's not bad at all.
Hey, to meet you.
Yeah, Josh.
Got my wife here. She's taking a video of us.
Oh, sounds good.
So it looks like you got yourself wow.
Yeah, that's easy. Yeah, it's not too bad.
I guess I was thinking because you had the top down, so it's a little cool out.
Yeah, it's not bad. I mean, they're aerodynamic, and so there's not a problem.
Oh, was it really even the cold? Huh?
No, I was gonna drive the Lamborghini, but it's got heated seats, and so it's real nice.
Oh,
But I didn't really know where I was going.
yeah,
So,
yeah. Oh, this is Poodles.
Hey, buddy.
This is Mr. Poodles, and he's just super friendly. Yeah, he requires constant attention all the time.
About 5 months ago.
Oh, yeah?
6 months
So you
ago.
haven't had it that long?
No, I haven't had this in that long. I got it for the wife so she could drive it. She's only drove it a few times.
Yeah, I know how that is.
Otherwise, I like yellow, so I was going to buy a yellow one, but I figured let me put her in a silver one. Yeah. You drive a yellow sports car. Yeah.
Well, hello there, friends. So, guess who just drove up? This is Josh. We've been in contact here lately, and it seems like we hit it off right away. He had some questions about what he wants to do for his future. He's thinking about retirement. So, if you have any questions, we can go ahead and just start.
Yeah. Just I wanted, like I said, come by and look at your setup and talk about your table and what over your 40 years experience, what made it easier for you to be able to do this. The dimensions of it, why you chose these dimensions. I think you base it more on what rolls come in standard length or width. And so that's kind of where I'd like to start is why you chose the table and how you came about this, because I think the experience is key in this industry, and I hope to learn a lot from that. So
yeah, well, those are all good questions. So over the last 45 years, I have had several variations and basic tables and upgraded tables, and probably about the last maybe 10 years I've been using this system here because I think that this works the best for me. Really what I have here is an overall length of 16 feet. So the reason I have that is I have this 8-foot section right here, so that way I can roll out my materials, and then I also have this extension over the sewing table.
Yeah.
And what's behind the sewing table here, so in case if I have to cut something that's really long, that's really helpful. And the other reason for this tail section here is if you're sewing up something big and heavy, like say a car cover or boat cover, something like that, you have a place to have it sit here, so that way you can slide it underneath the machining a lot easier. I have been, because of space or whatever, back in the past, I've had short ones, and maybe even this long here, and everything hangs over the edge, and you can't feed it through the machine, so you're struggling just to get it forward, and that's going to affect the way you're sewing it. So when you have something that has this large of an area, it slides through the machine a lot nicer. So I have a 60-inch width to handle most of the materials come 54 inches wide. It's the most common, so I figured 60 is pretty good. And I tried to leave a little bit of space on over there in case if I ever had to walk around to the other side to do any cutting or marking. So that's why we have the space on the other side there.
Gotcha.
The other thing that you'll notice and people have asked about is this little cutout in the table right here.
Uh-huh.
So what that does, that allows me to move my body closer to where the needle is. So you know, if you're a shooter, you know, and you have experience with a rifle or whatever, you know, you're looking down the sights of your rifle. It's kind of the same thing. I'm looking down the sights of my needle, you know, and that's how you can get your nice straight lines. Because if you're sitting off to the side and you're trying to sew, you know, it's just doesn't work as well. I guess you can do it, but I just think that this is a better way to do it.
So more of a clear line of sight on
That's
what you're trying
right.
to sew, so you can keep a straight line.
So the other thing too is, people have asked about is like chairs. So for many years I've had chairs with rollers, right?
Yeah.
Okay, but the thread always gets caught in the wheel, and then you can't even move it anymore.
Yeah, I can see that.
So I just use a regular chair with 4 legs.
Right.
You know, you can move it around and all, but you know, there's no mess underneath the wheels. So
Now, do you find it more comfortable ergonomically to sit in a chair or to stand up?
oh no, you definitely have to sit, especially if you're sewing for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I couldn't see standing up. Maybe some people probably could, but I've never even tried it, to tell you the truth. Yeah, I've always sat.
Right. Oh,
Mhm.
very, very good. Very good. Yeah, like I said, I think the overall length of it looks right, and looks like you have to have pretty good space dedicated to it. And I think that's probably if you're going to do this full time or as a business, I think that's probably real important to set aside your space and to know what your overall goals are, and then your space, and then set yourself up for success. And like I said, I think that's important. That's what I wanted to know about the dimensions of this table. And like I said, it looks like a really well thought out, and as I would expect with the 40 plus years experience that you have.
Like I say, you know, I found out what works, what doesn't work. So the other people have asked about table height.
Yeah.
So with table height, it's really what's comfortable for your body. You know, whatever your body's comfortable with. For me, I think this ended up being about 31 inches high overall. I'm 5'6", so I know. Don't laugh, okay? I know. I look taller in the video,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
Anyway, so does Stallone.
Yeah.
But anyway,
well, I'm 6'1" to 6'6", depending on which convenience store I'm leaving.
Yeah, right. Yeah, so I guess my height is probably right here where my hip bone would be.
Sure.
You know, for anybody else, you know, depending on their height, that's comfortable for me because that's where I can place my hands and that's where I can bend. So yeah, that works out pretty good there.
Right. And do you find it okay? As far as the machine goes, I see that it's built into the table. Do you ever have to move the machine? Or I know the normal industrial machines will fold over to be able to maintain the machines. Is that any issues at all? Do you find that when you have this, obviously this is stationary and built to be almost a permanent structure, does that have an issue when thinking about things, or does this, you never really have issues with the machine?
No, don't really. Well, this particular machine, well, a lot of other machines, the one I had for 40 years, was the Chandler Adler before I wore it out. So I had to go shopping for a new one. So this new one here, it has a self-oiling system.
Right.
So really, the old one, I'd have to flip it over and I'd have to oil all the ports by hand. But I've never had to do that with this. So basically, this is maintenance free.
Right.
So I don't have that issue with this machine. But you know, normally you can see the hinges on the back here. Right. Yeah, it'll tilt forwards that way if you had to do any kind of maintenance.
Okay. Yeah, very good. I didn't know if that was maintenance was an issue, or you had to take the table apart and then you have to do whole rigmarole of doing it.
No, like never.
Oh, that's good. Again, that's and I suspected that since it was closer to the wall and it would be a pain to it, but I suspected it had no real maintenance issues. I think all industrial. I think you have the 2110, but I believe most industrial machines of this caliper that you would get for commercial use would be about the same nowadays. Is what I suspect.
Yeah, I'm probably in the more modern ones. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sure.
Well, It's very neat. Well, so your table's 31 height, but you say set it up for what you're comfortable with.
Yeah,
Huh?
right. Yeah, your body size.
Gotcha.
Mhm.
Gotcha. And do you spend, so obviously every job would be different, but do you feel like you spend is it more important to have a well thought out plan before you start sewing, or do you start to just kind of mark up and sew as you go and then figure the whole plan out?
Well, to tell you the truth, sometimes when I'm not on video and I'm just working, sometimes I just go into like cruise control.
Sure.
I don't even really think about it. I'm just kind of doing it,
Yeah.
kind of like, you're driving your Ferrari, right?
Right.
You're shifting gears or whatever.
Yeah.
You don't think much about shifting the gears. So
Right.
that's kind of way how it's become for me. But I really have to stop and think sometimes when I am filming a video, because there have been times in the past where I've made videos where I kind of went into my cruise control and I wasn't explaining everything. So everybody's asking me, well, how did you do this? Why did you do that? So that's why in my videos, I try to slow it down a little bit and I try to mention everything that I'm doing. And some people, they hate that. They're like, just do it and don't talk about it. And I'm like, well, I'm trying to teach people.
Absolutely. And I think that's what drew me to your videos. I don't watch a lot of videos. I just don't have that kind of time. But what drew me to your videos when researching upholstery and how to start, or was your well thought out, your techniques that you like to talk about and how you did that in a very real time, but a slower method where somebody like me that is just getting into the industry or wanting to get in the industry could be able to follow those step by steps, because I think you've talked about it, and I think we've talked about it before. This is a dying art, and there aren't schools that will show you the way that you've done this in the past to be successful in the future. And I think that's, again, what drew me to this, to you specifically, was you took the time to do this for other people. Because like you said, some people don't do that.
That's what I mentioned in my very first video. And it's the very first video. If you go to the YouTube channel, you'll see the first video where I explain all of that, where I'm nearing the end of my career and I've always kept all my closely guarded secrets.
Right.
So I thought, well, I'd like to go ahead and, it doesn't matter to me anymore, right? So I don't need the competition, or competition doesn't bother me, whatever. So I thought I would just go ahead and share what I know.
Right.
And you know what? It's so rewarding.
Right.
Because of the comments that I have. I mean, on my channel, I have thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of comments, and I've answered every single one of them. And it's people, they say such nice things.
Right.
Very rarely somebody will say something that I got to defend myself, right?
Sure.
But anyway, people have been very gracious in the comments, and that's rewarding for me, and I enjoy doing that, because that gives me a reward.
Absolutely.
So it kind of bounces back and forth as far as reward goes. But I'm happy to do it, and just pay attention to those techniques.
Right.
So,
absolutely.
yeah, the technique numbers. People always ask me, well, do you have a copy, or do you have a book, or do you have a list? What's a list? Because I even have a technique number like 3,855,000. So anyway, what I tell them, I say, the number of the technique isn't really what's important.
That's right.
It's the lower the number is, the more important it is. So that's where you got to pay attention, especially if it's a technique that's numbered under 100. Okay, that's very important. That's something that you should probably pay attention to. And that's why I even came up with this system. So that way they'll recognize, okay, here comes a technique, I got to pay more attention, right?
Yeah.
So it draws people to what I'm doing at that moment.
Absolutely. It seems like, again,
Secrets
well thought out. Yeah, well thought out. And I think I picked up on that early, because I started watching a video that, and I don't remember which video it was, but it was not the very first one. It was just a random video. You're talking about the machine, because that's what I was interested in, is finding out what types of machines that the more experienced people use. And that's what it was for me, was looking at the machines. And I noticed, I was like, where did he come 786? What technique was that?
Yeah.
And then let's go back to 533. And then I figured out that I figured out your method, and I was like, well, that's really ingenious, and I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, so the not so important methods or techniques are like 5,000, right?
right.
6,000, 7,000. They're good to know, but keeping an eye on those ones that are under 100.
Right, absolutely. So getting back to the setup of your overall operation, I would understand that the most important or the most important investment would be your machine, I would think, or the highest investment would be your machine. Uh, and then after that, it seems like it's a relatively inexpensive, maybe hobby or thing to get into.
Mm-hmm.
What would be the second most expensive investment in part of this part, away from your shop, away from the big items that you would have to have any type of industry? Would it be maybe the table, or would it be your tools as far as scissors? Uh, Stock, I would think, would be up there as
Mm-hmm.
well. But again, you can grow that with your business.
Sure.
So, what is in your eyes, what would be the second most important investment as far as monetary concerns are?
Well, yeah, you're right. The machine is going to be the most expensive. Wood for the table, that's pretty minor. Um, let's see, materials. If you're doing it as a business, it's going to be more expensive because, well, I don't really keep a stock. I usually just order what is needed for the job, so that way I don't end up with a lot of waste or stock of materials laying around. I mean, I've had boxes. Well, years ago, I threw away boxes and boxes of leather.
Yeah.
Then from rare cars,
Right.
from the 53 Buick Skylarks, from the old Cadillacs. I had some Ferrari leathers, and they were just sitting in the boxes.
Absolutely.
And you know what? I moved them from place to place to place for years.
Right.
And then one year I just threw them all
Yeah.
away.
I'm going to use them one day. One day doesn't come, unfortunately.
Yeah, so really, when I order materials for a customer's car, I just order what's needed for the job.
Right.
And for a hobby, I can't see where you'd probably be spending a whole lot on materials,
Sure.
because you're just doing your own project.
Right.
But like I always tell people in the comments, that want to do it for a hobby, I said, might as well turn it into a business and get paid for doing the same work.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's important. I mean, you want to cover your cost. Like with any
Sure.
business, you want to cover costs because everything has a cost, whether it would be electricity, whether it be the water you're drinking, whether it be the carpet or whatever, it's all associated. But like I said, one thing that I do like about this, and again, how it's well thought out and you can learn from your experience, was not to make the same mistakes that a person that has no experience in would make. To build maybe a different size table, and then you got to go buy new wood or a different type of machine. I think you had three important things for machines. Reverse, walking foot, and a welt needle.
Yeah, well, yeah. So people, they'll ask me all the time. Well, they'll say, I think you did. You said, I'm interested in buying a new machine. And what I'll tell them is, well, new or used, will work pretty much equally the same. The most important thing that you need to know is that it has reverse, that it has a walking foot and a welt foot. So with those three things, you can probably pretty much sew up just about anything.
Right.
People, and when I tell them that I never take my welt foot off of my machine, it's always there, and almost like 100% of the time. They can't believe it. They're like, how can you sew everything with a welt foot? But I never take it off the machine.
Right.
I never change it out.
So regarding welt foot, I know there's several different sizes. I think there's quarter, half inch, maybe even higher. What do you normally use or recommend for a welt foot sizing?
What I've used is a 1/4 inch, and like I said, never change it.
Okay. And that's one of the questions I had. Is again, I didn't know. I think I ended up buying a half inch welt foot, but probably get a 1/4 if that works for you. Again, I see no reason to reinvent the wheel. Probably wouldn't do any better.
Yeah, one other thing that might be helpful is a zipper foot. But even with my welt foot, I still sew zipper.
Right.
So, I mean, I have a zipper foot that I never use.
Right.
Put it that way.
Absolutely. And I believe in a couple of videos you mentioned the size of your needle, and you never changed the needle.
That's right.
What size needle? And forgive me if I don't understand the sizing. I think it's 20 or 19, maybe. I don't remember.
Well, there are different sizes. But for my industrial sewing machine, what I've always used, I mean, See, the thing about me is I'm old school. Nobody taught me anything. So what I do worked early on.
Mm-hmm.
So I just continue to do it all these years.
Absolutely.
You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, right? So what I've always used is a 135 by 17 needle.
Okay.
And even for the heavy top thread, it still works. So I don't even have to change the needle for different thread sizes.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, so I never changed the needle.
Right.
Matter of fact, I think on Amazon or something, I bought me like a big giant pack of 100 or something like that. Now,
Right.
I'll never live that long.
Right. No, well, it's good to know. You know, one thing that I was thinking about is how long do needles last? My assumption would be if you have years of experience, you know how to work your machine, you come comfortable with the machine, needles probably last a good long time. If you're not, you're probably learning. Do you see an inexperienced beginner breaking needles, or did they just last because there's really not really anything to break? What about needles and the longevity of them?
Yeah, well, needles could last anywhere from probably 30 seconds to, years.
Okay.
So really, the only time I've ever had to replace one is if it broke.
Okay.
So if you're sewing something and there's some kind of a wire underneath there or a zipper or something where the needle is really going to hit something hard and hard enough to break the needle.
Right.
Sometimes what that'll do is that'll knock a sewing machine off of timing.
Mm-hmm.
So like the old machines, I'd have to always reset the timing. I've never had that problem with this one though.
Okay.
I have broken needles on this one here,
Right.
and I've never had that problem about resetting the timing.
It's important. Okay, I had never heard about timing. Again, I think maybe just my thought would be maybe newer machines are better timed or have a more sophisticated timing versus an older machine. So maybe
Yeah,
that's
I'm not
the case.
sure. Yeah, really, what the timing is you have your needle and then you have your bottom thread. So your bottom thread carrier has a hook, so that's what picks up the needle.
Mm-hmm.
So when the needle hits something and it like knocks it off, it's like a safety feature. So the needle really stops. They're not timed anymore. You see.
I guess.
So there is a way to reset. I mean, I can't do it with my hands. But
Absolutely.
You reset the machine so that way the bottom hook will catch that needle.
I see. Okay, and again, for beginners like me that have never sewn, it probably doesn't really have to do with it. But again, I like to understand the bobbin is what you may refer to as with the underneath thread, or
the bottom thread is a
bottom
bobbin.
thread. Okay, and is that always the same color, same size because it's just to hold the top thread in? Or does it matter on certain instances where you could say, okay, I need a different color, different size?
Very rarely, I think you'd have to use a different color. I always try to use the largest size that your machine will hold. There are various sizes. My machine here takes like a big, giant, huge one that I can't even get. Nobody sells them.
Right.
So I have to use the next size down, which works.
Right.
So the two color bobbins that I always use for like everything is either black or they call it beaver. Like you say, you don't ever see the bottom thread. Right. You only really see the top thread. So most of the time, the bottom thread doesn't even the color doesn't matter. As long as you have your tensions set right, your top and bottom tension, where you're not going to pull up the bottom thread. Okay, because the bottom thread could show if it's not set, tension's not set right.
Right.
Okay, then that would probably look pretty bad. So a lot of people, they talk to me about that kind of stuff too. But anyway, so color doesn't really matter so much. I always keep the same size. I never change the size of the bobbin.
Okay.
So I just buy my gross 144 pieces and I just throw them into the machine as needed.
Right.
Mostly like if I just finished some white boat cushions, I use the beaver thread because it's a light color. You don't see it anyway, but I don't want to see it, so it's better than black just in case. So yeah.
And the bobbin thread are there different types of thread? Is there a synthetic, a nylon, or is it just again, I don't know. I'm assuming that it's probably just a standard whatever thread is.
Mm.
Is it a nylon?
Well, I'm going to get some hate on this too because you know, it's like Ford and Chevy, right?
Okay.
So anyway, I use bonded thread that's either nylon or I can use polyester. In the end, they really both last about the same. They work the same. I don't even pay attention to that.
I got you.
I just put the thread in the machine.
Okay.
So, but like I said, you know, the purists out there, the guys with all the experience and the experts, they're going to let me know, right?
That's all right.
Yeah.
That's all right. Well, everybody has their own way of doing it, and what works for you obviously has been fruitful in your 40 plus years of experience. So again, I see no reason to change that. And so what you're saying is whether you're doing a seat for a vehicle, a cushion for a couch in a house, or a maybe a boat cushion, and water, you know, it doesn't really matter.
Well, they do sell UV thread.
Okay,
for outdoor applications. But you know, I've seen. I mean, the last video I just did. I'm showing an example of a French stitch because people also say put a tape behind the French stitch. It's not a real French stitch unless if you put the tape behind it. But the boat cushion that I just did, I showed in that video where it fell apart.
Right.
Okay, so it has marine vinyl, it has UV thread, it has the tape behind the French stitch, and it failed.
Okay.
So what I'm saying is, in the end, all this fancy stuff, and I always say it's not rocket science, okay, because it really isn't. You know, I just like to keep things very basic and simple. And like I say, there's just so many things, like people talk about direction, patterns on vinyl because of the stretch of the vinyl. You know, I don't even pay attention to that. You know, I just make my patterns on the vinyl regardless of where it lands on the roll.
Right.
Because what makes it fit is the pattern itself makes it fit the object that you're covering.
Right.
So it really doesn't matter longevity on like leather and vinyl. People say which one lasts longer, and really it's about the same because a lot of these new trucks they come in that have a worn out seat panel that's a leather on the top and vinyl on the sides. They don't know that until you point it out to them.
Right.
So you could see that they both wore about the same. So even that doesn't really matter in the long run. The differences between regular vinyl and marine vinyl, again, I have a video called that marine vinyl is a scam.
Yes.
Okay.
I saw that.
So that video shows how really basically all vinyl is the same. It's a plastic with a fabric backing.
Right.
Okay. And you know, one costs more than the other. The marine usually costs more than automotive, but it's in the end, in the long run, it'll last about the same. I'm going to get more hate. I know it.
That's okay. That's okay. You know, haters are everywhere. You know, if it wasn't for haters, this life would not be worth living. So I'm okay. I tell people I have a lot of haters, and if you want to hate, that's okay. But you can't come to the front of the line. You got to go around the block, 4 blocks down, and take a left, and that's where the end starts. You start there.
You
and when you get up here, we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
Then we'll talk and we'll just discuss it. But that's okay. So I'm all right.
It might take years of experience to get from the back of the line to the front of the line. And by then, they might even have the answer.
They have the answer, they'll forget about it.
Yeah. Well, I know when I was 19 years old, I thought I already lived my life.
No.
I thought I knew everything there was to know. I thought, you know, I'd done everything there was to do. I've been everywhere I need to be.
Yeah.
In the 1990s, I was the prima donna. I was doing the $1 million cars, you know, the Duesenbergs, the Accords, the V16 Cadillacs, V12 Packards. That's during that time. That's when those cars were really popular, and I felt like a balloon, right? I mean, I was like way up here, but you know, now here I am doing kitchen chairs. You know, I'm doing boat cushions. It doesn't matter to me anymore. Yeah. But I guess what I'm saying is, back then I thought I knew everything. But you know what? That was a long time ago, you know. And for me, the difference between then and now is back then I didn't know anything.
Yeah. Well, retrospect, right? And I tell people we get so caught up in life and we think of how static things, we think things are static, but they're really dynamic. You've got to be fluid in everything you do. And again, even though this industry, the sewing machines probably adapt, the mechanics are still the same, the fundamentals same, but we have to be fluid in what customers want or how we want or what we want. Again, the 70s shag carpet is not really popular anymore, right?
Because or it could make a comeback.
That's it. Well, right. And so we try to be fluid, and we need to be fluid, and you know, and so more dynamic, and I understand that.
Yeah, so, right. Yeah,
and it sounds like you've done that. I mean, you've done 40 years. You've seen a lot, done a lot, and again, that's that experience, and you've still maintained it. It's not like you did it for 10 years and went to another industry. The testament of time is you know, a testament of your ability to do the good work, and obviously, people are still coming to you. So, 5 or 6 states, and they're still liking you.
Yeah.
Nationwide at this point, it seems like.
Yeah, well, I do get you know, I get emails all the time of people in Oregon, you know, Portland, you know, wherever, Maine, everywhere you name it, California, they want me to work on their car.
Right.
And I'm like, well, you're gonna drive here?
Right, absolutely.
You know, they'll say, where do you live? And I always write, well, I'm a proud resident of East Texas. Yeah. So, you know, after that, I never hear from them again.
Yeah, that's all right.
And that's the other thing is people, they'll call me, but if it's not a Texas phone number, I don't even bother answering it. You know, I mean, can't. Sorry, guys. But, you know, somebody will call me from Montana asking me for 20 minutes about something. And I can't spend that kind of time on the phone when I'm supposed to be working.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
I understand that. And I really appreciate the time because, again, I think this is a good learning experience for myself, and hopefully others will learn from this as well. Because I'm sure that a lot of people have out there same questions that I do. Again, because you've got to start somewhere. I tell people all the time that I work with, you cannot finish a project till you start it. And I'm on that journey now, and I'm glad I started this because, again, if I didn't watch your videos, I'd probably still be in that same rut that I'm gonna do it next week, and I'll never buy a machine. You know, I've already bought a machine now, and so I've committed to this, and so I'm really excited.
Right.
So on your tools, let's talk about your tools. It seems that, again, one thing I like about the way you work is you're simplistic in your process. Again, I think that's a testament to your 40 plus years of experience, and you know it works, you know what doesn't. You could have 80,000 pieces of scissors on your shelf, but again, I think you need 3 is what it is. So talk to me about your scissors. I know you've done it in a couple other videos. Seems like you use 1 or 2 or maybe only 3 scissors at all.
Yeah, like you say, I do have a video about the tools that I keep close to me around the sewing table.
Yeah.
And really, it's not much. I'm only using maybe 10 tools, probably total.
Yeah.
And not all the time. I have a big, huge toolbox full of tools that I never touch. Right. Because I don't need to.
Right.
So for sewing and for upholstery, it is really basic. You know, as far as scissors go, what I keep here close by is I've had these for probably maybe 25 years. This is a pair of, I think they're Weiss 10-inch.
Okay.
And then I have other scissors that I probably bought this at Joann's or Michael's or something. And I usually use something like this here for just like cutting thread on the machine. I used to use these here for cutting materials, but I found that I don't even use these anymore. I just really use other regular scissors. Don't see them here. But these pretty much have been retired, I think. But other people, they'll even ask me, how do you sharpen your scissors? And on several videos, I say, well, you're not going to believe me, but I take a grinder and I literally grind the edge of the scissors.
Sure. Absolutely.
And it creates like a little serrated edge. And people think I'm nuts, but that's what I've been doing for years and years. And actually, when they're newly sharpened, there's a nice serrated edge there. It cuts really nice.
Right. Well, that's good. And so I've noticed on the videos as well, your rulers. You only have about 3 or 4 rulers, and that seems like that's all you need. You've got your long ones and your square.
Yeah. So what I use a square. I have a long one.
Right. And this is a 16 by 24, or is that right? Somewhere in there, that's what it looks like.
Yeah,
Yeah,
probably.
yeah,
Yeah,
20.
16 by
Okay,
24.
yeah, 16 by 24.
This one here is a 60-inch. You can get them in a 72, I think.
Uh-huh.
But even this one here, I don't even know where this one came from. It says Johnson City, Tennessee, and I know I've never been there.
Right.
But I have this, and probably the one that I use the most. And I think I bought this at Harbor Freight.
Uh-huh.
Oh, this is
36 inch.
yeah, this is a brand new one. Look, it still has some plastic on it.
Yeah.
I guess I haven't used that one. I guess I must be talking about this one.
Yeah, I got okay. So
Yeah,
36 or 30 inch, 40 inch.
So with these here, it pretty much gets me everywhere I need to be.
So that's your workhorse. Is your 40 inch? It's long enough to do straight lines, but not big enough to be so.
Yeah,
you're hitting
so long. Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Oh, that makes sense. Okay. And I know you talk a lot about your China markers, your Sharpie China markers. Is that your go-to as far as markers? I know some people use chalk, and I know you use chalk to do left side, right side. I think I've seen it.
Oh yeah, for making a mirror pattern.
Right.
You're doing like a mirror image. So let's see. I thought I could probably find it here real quick. It is right here. Sorry, guys. So anyway, white Sharpie China marker. You've seen this a lot.
Yeah.
And I usually buy these by the box on Amazon or something.
Yeah.
Same thing with black Sharpie pens. So these are really pretty much, I use these about 90% of the time. Sometimes I'll use a pencil, like I just had to do on the white vinyl for these boat seats. And then the last and not least, what I used all those years before I even started using this other stuff is white chalk. Okay. So I used to use yellow chalk, but I stopped using yellow chalk because it'll stain white vinyls. So you won't be able to clean off the yellow off of the white.
I see. Okay.
So, but you can't see the white chalk on white vinyl.
Right.
So that's why I use the pencil.
Gotcha. Okay. And from your experience, most of these do not leave a mark where you can wipe it off, or if you do see the mark, it's because you're going to have it where the soda area will cover it. Is that correct?
Yeah, right. Like in black mark, I can use a black Sharpie. Okay, here I'm going to get hate for this one too. Black Sharpie on white vinyl, because if you were to mark white vinyl, even on the back side, maybe later on in the future it'll bleed through the top and you'd be able to see it. But what I do is I just make my little marks. I usually just like a little hash or even a dot or something like that, in which hides itself in the oh, there goes my brain. I have a half brain, for those that you don't know. I'll explain that one day. But anyway, in the sewing allowance, so it does disappear behind the stitch.
That's that 3/8 generally you have.
Yeah, I generally use a 3/8 inch. A lot of people, they'll ask me, what size should I use or what do you use? Really, it's a personal preference. Mostly automotive will use the 3/8. And pretty much anything else is like anywhere else. So like furniture could be a half inch. I've seen that a lot. Boat stuff is usually about a 7/16 of an inch or half inch. So it's like everywhere. So there's no standard.
Right.
But
and that's because probably in automotive you have smaller, they're laying on a dash or a seat or something, and the cushion is not very thick. And you would see that. Is that probably why?
You could see the overhang of the backside.
Okay, so that makes sense. And then a seat cushion in a couch would be very thick, 6 or 8 inches. So you probably wouldn't see it at all.
Yeah, most people don't know, but a lot of people they think that the size of that stitch there. See, there we go again. Sorry, guys. Anyway. They think that it's real important to the size and the shape and the size of whatever cushion it is or something that you're making. That if you do a larger seam allowance, that your pattern or whatever cover you're making would be too big. Or if you make it too small, that it'll be too tight. But really, in the long run, when you're talking about 3/8 of an inch to a half inch, it really doesn't matter.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, I think the main point is to have it for longevity to make it work. I think if you had a smaller one than 3/8, you may more tend to maybe pull apart possibly, or make it harder to sew. Is that about right?
No, there's never a problem. Yeah, nothing will ever come apart.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that sounds right. So, well, that sounds about what I wanted to know about the tools and again the setup and your table. Um, so my next question and moving into, I guess, the important part about anything is the material.
Mhm.
One thing that I think I watched a video recently with you talking about your distributors and your manufacturers.
Mhm.
It's probably pretty good to have a go-to manufacturer or distributor. Is that correct?
Yeah, if you can build a relationship with somebody, hopefully that's close to you in your area, where if you needed to pick up some materials, you just go drive a couple miles or something and pick it up.
Right.
That's the best situation. People, they ask me all the time in comments, can you give me a link to this material? And I always have to tell them, well, I don't buy my stuff on Amazon.
Right.
Just Google upholstery supplier near me.
Right.
And
Okay.
hopefully you'll find somebody that's close to you in your area. If not, the people that I use most of the time here, because I'm in the Houston area, is Keystone Brothers.
Yeah.
They have several locations in the USA, and they ship. So if you needed to order something like that, but really go to an upholstery supplier, not Michael's, right? Not Joann's,
Right. Okay.
because they'll sell you the cheap Chinese vinyl that peels apart. But anyway, sorry guys. But that's what I do is, building the relationships. I mean, especially over the years. I mean, decades I've known these people.
Right.
Where I get my materials from. So there's a good relationship there.
Yeah, with any part of any business or any industry, relationships are key for distribution and manufacturing, and I assume that this is no exception. Because you know that you can depend on your distributors, and if you have an issue with some stuff, I assume that with this it doesn't come up very often. But if they would back that up, and you could call them and tell them, "Hey, this is wrong." So, that was a question.
Well, that has happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they always make it right.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Well, very good. And if I was, obviously, I've talked to you before, and I don't intend on doing this for a profession or a commercial application, but I've noticed that you have color samples. Is that a important piece to do? So if you're doing commercial?
Well, yeah, customers, they'll come in, and this is my automotive ring right here. And really, this is called, and I get this from Keystone.
Uh-huh.
And this is what they call the partners program. So you have all of these different colors right here of automotive vinyl, and they have a corresponding leather for every one of these colors and grains.
Mm-hmm.
So this is all for like late model stuff. Mm-hmm. So if you brought in your 2019 GMC Sierra truck, chances are I'm going to find it in here, color and all.
Right.
So they provide this. If you're a business, they provide you with all the samples, and I don't have a whole lot because it's all pretty basic. I have my automotive and my marine vinyls.
Gotcha. So
marine vinyls and all. So my video where I talk about marine vinyl being a scam.
Right.
I went to all the specifics, the specs, and I compared the specs between automotive and marine, and they're not that far off.
Right.
Yeah. So I don't think it really matters.
Oh, very good. Yeah, I assume that, again, when you talk about partnership distribution and then the samples to be able to show customers, I'm curious, as in your 40 years, you've seen a lot of people come through the doors and obviously a lot of happy customers. Is black the most sought after color, or do you think there's other colors that you would think it would not be? A lot of people like black interior, but as we move into the more wilder colors and production of different synthetics and colors come available, this isn't Henry Ford. You can have any color you want as long as it's black, right? Is that what you see? And do you see a trend in the industry maybe going forward that, hey, people want more choices, right? More variety. We always want more as Americans, right? We always want more. We can't get enough. What do you see in
Well,
you know,
I don't see any kind of a trend in colors. Really, for me, the kind of customers I get is really replacement. So I'm fixing something that's broke.
right,
So I'm just matching what they had before.
right,
I did get a call yesterday. A lady, she spent a little time with me on the phone. She's building a truck, a Barbie truck.
mm-hmm.
So she had it painted pink.
Right.
She got her Barbie on the side. She said everything's pink and white. She wants her pink and white leather interior.
Right.
So it really depends on the customer. Like the jet skis, are usually, you get some reds, greens, yellow,
Right.
blue,
More outlandish
marine
colors.
stuff. Yeah. But when it comes to vehicles, it's all pretty much standard stuff.
Gotcha.
Uh-huh.
Well, that's cool. And so you talk about your marine applications. You talk about your home applications, your auto applications. As far as those are concerned, and then I'll go one up more of your standard, and we'll just say GM Ford leather, and your more Ferrari higher end car leather. Is there any difference in sewing those? Do you find it more easier or harder to sew one type of leather or the other, or a vinyl? What is your preference, and does it even matter?
Yeah, it doesn't really matter. Somebody puts a name on it and a color, but it's all comes from a cow, right?
Okay. Yeah.
Except for there is a famous aftermarket seat company that I shouldn't name because I'd probably get me in some legal trouble. But all the automotive dealers, all the new car dealers sell this stuff.
Yeah.
But if you went to their website, they're really, really proud of what they call Brazilian leather.
Right.
And on their website, and if you think about it, their Brazilian leather, it's oxen. Okay, it's not like cowhide leather like we have here in the United States or in Europe. So it's different leather. So I've done a lot of replacements and repairs on these brand new seat covers that are only 3 years old.
Right.
So that's about the longevity from this oxen leather. Yeah. So, but as far as, there's a lot of great leather companies. I usually get my stuff from Keystone. Right. But another good one is Douglas Leather. And there's a Connolly Leather. I think they're from England in the UK. So, there is, higher end leather. Some might be a little bit softer. Is about where it's at, like some of the Ferrari leathers. But really, in the end, what it is it's taken off of a cow. They put a plastic coating over the top.
Correct.
Okay, and with that it contains the color. Okay, so that usually when you're sitting on a 5-year-old leather seat, you start getting the cracks. Okay, that's the plastic cracking. Okay, it's not the leather because you can actually see the leather underneath it, underneath the crack. So a lot of people, they don't know that about leather.
Oh, yeah, that's fascinating. I know a little bit about it, but I didn't know that at all. That's very fascinating.
The thing about leather, when you're cutting patterns or you're using the leather hide, okay, it doesn't have a standard shape like a roll of vinyl does. Okay, so it's going to have this crazy shape like that because of the legs, and usually there'll be a big hole where the knotty bits, right, would be on this cow, and usually the edges are going to be a lot harder and stiffer. So the usable material is usually going to be on the inside of that leather hide. So there's going to be a lot of waste involved, unless if you can find another use for that harder leather.
Right. So I do know what you're talking about. You're talking about a one-off there, but you get different hides or different leather hides from manufacturers versus your roll, right? So do you enjoy working with that more, or is it just really doesn't matter to you?
Doesn't matter to me.
Okay.
It's pretty much the same.
Yeah, I think again, when I do get to watch a little bit of TV or videos, I saw you'll see your higher end shops in Houston or all around the United States. They'll bring these hides out, and they're exactly what you're describing, and you see how much waste that goes into it, and you're like, that's got to be pretty pricey. And again, because things have a cost again, and if you can't do nothing with it, then you've got to throw that away, and this is what it costs. So.
Yeah. So yeah, when using a leather hide, I've thrown a lot of that stuff in the trash.
Right.
Yeah, because sometimes it's just unusable.
I see. Very good. Yeah, I mean, a lot of this is great information. From a first time beginner, I mean, we've talked about your expenditures trying to start up, your tools, your manufacturer distributors. Is there anything else that's more important as a beginner for anybody, even for a hobbyist versus an industrial, or it doesn't really matter? Is there anything else that I should know about where these are really good tips other than your techniques that you do cover in your videos? What's the most important thing about this whole industry? Is it just time? Take your time and experience?
Yeah. So for me, I would have to say, I started out knowing absolutely nothing when I was 15 years old. And I didn't have a teacher. I didn't have YouTube.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
There was no YouTube back in 1980.
Right.
So I had to learn everything myself.
Yeah.
And the way you learn is through mistakes. So when you make that mistake, you don't make it again, right?
Yeah.
So with that kind of experience, decades of experience of making mistakes and having failures, that's when you know that your standards start going a lot higher, as well as your quality. And when to say when, because you could spend 100 hours on something that maybe should have took 30 if you're in that mindset.
Right.
So sometimes you just got to tell yourself when to stop. But anyway, one thing that was taught to me a long time ago, Drew Alcazar, he's the guy that runs the Russo and Steel auction in Scottsdale, Arizona, every January. Anyway, I did about 40 of his old 1960s Ferraris. And one thing that he told me was, because he bought and sold a lot of cars. And I asked him, I said, well, how would you know that that's a good car to buy? And he says, well, I look in the glove box. Right. So if the quality of the glove box is really nice, that means the rest of the car must be nice. Right. And then even back in the 1990s, I guess that was, when I was doing all the classic cars. Classics mean like 1930s, guys, not 1970s. Okay, so the guy that was doing all the paint work for those cars and I was doing the upholstery, I asked him once, because he was really successful. I asked him, I said, well, what's your secret to success? And he said, uncompromising quality. Absolutely. So even to this day, if you go to my website, on the front page of my website, it says uncompromising quality. So that's something that stuck with me all these years. Right. So that only happens with experience, though. You can't just take a class on upholstery and hold up a diploma and say, I have a diploma for upholstery. Okay. So I kind of laugh at myself. Okay, well, really upholstery is 10% knowledge, 90% is technique. Technique is something that you learn over time. Right. So yeah, really, that's
very good. Yeah, and,
did I run out of words?
No. Speaking of your website, one thing that I enjoyed, and this is totally off topic of within the upholstery business, but I noticed that in your 40-something years, you did a lot of mini trucks. You talk about that, and what was your favorite time in life as far as favorite experience for us? Was it mini truck scene? Is it the exotic scene? I come from a mini truck because that's all I could afford when I was younger, and I've graduated up to having a few exotics, and but I think I told you, I'm in my later years, and I've got a few $100,000 worth of cars, but I've got a little $2,000 S10 that I'm working on that I absolutely adore, and people ask me all the time, why do you care about this $2,000? You've got a $200,000 car there. Because it means more to me. It's about the feeling, the experience, the past. And again, I tell people, my fun is directly related to my cost. And if my cost goes up, well, the fun goes out the window. It's no fun blowing a couple $100,000 sometimes. It's funner just to work on a $500 piece of junk,
Mhm.
but it's experience. And so, what was your? Because I see you've done tons of mini trucks,
Mhm.
radical tops, hard tops. I actually had a convertible S10 back in the '90s, and I
Mhm.
enjoyed it. And that's again why I have another S10 because I'm going to cut the top off that.
Yeah.
So, what was your experience? I'm just curious, is it because you live this, right? This is
Yeah.
stuff that a lot of these young guys don't. They see pictures and they don't understand what the scene was like. And even as I started early on, but the scene was getting it was past when I started young. And so,
Mhm.
to somebody that lived it, what was your experience like?
Yeah, well, on my website, I have the pages. It's Rudolph's Virtual Museum.
Yeah.
And I kind of go through my years of, geez, when I was 10 years old, putting bicycles in auto shows. And my father being an old hot rodder and back in the 50s. So anyway, we used to do all the vans back in the 70s when that was the thing. And that's pretty much when I went out on my own. And then after that, I was pretty much cutting edge on pretty much everything I did. Did the Volkswagens,
Right.
back in the when there was no such thing as a Lord Volkswagen.
Right.
Custom paint jobs with graphics on Volkswagens and stuff. And I was like one of the first. Okay, you mentioned the mini trucks. The mini trucks. I was there on that cutting edge. We were cutting up trucks.
Right.
Making convertibles. You see all that on my website too. And after that was we used to call them Euro cars.
Yeah.
Okay, I had like the first Euro cars out there, that were lowered with 16-inch wheels and ground effects, and
Which was big at the time.
yeah, we did the auto neon back in 1984 before anybody else did. I mean, I've just done so much of that, and it was fun, and magazines and girls,
Yeah.
right?
Mini trucks,
Yeah,
mini trucking.
girls and mini trucks. So there was that, but probably the favorite, to tell you the truth, I probably went through about 100 old cars personally, and a lot of them were very rare and valuable. They're all mostly memories now. I enjoyed them when I had them. I didn't know what I had at the time, and they're all gone. A couple of years ago, I went on Hemmings Motor News and I looked up some of my old cars, like the '57 Cadillac Eldorado Brougham that I have on my website. Sold that in like 1996, I think it was. Bear Jackson, Scottsdale. I looked it up to see what it would cost to replace that car. And there's no way in this world I could ever replace the cars that I sold.
Yeah. No, absolutely. That's as I've gotten older, I quit selling stuff. I just I can build more space, but I can't get those cars back. And I'm right with you.
They just become a memory.
Yeah. So
But I've always, when I started out, I was I was 10 years old, painting all my neighbors' cars up and down the street in my mother's driveway, making my own money.
Right.
So that's when I started making my own money. So all the old cars that I went through, I did my own restoration. So I did my own body, my own paint, my own interior. I did all of that. And I'd send out the chrome and all, but I did everything else. So that, for me, that was probably the best part, was when I was restoring and enjoying these old mostly 1950s guys, classics, or 1970s. Okay, but I did mostly 50s Buicks and Packards, and I did a lot of Cadillacs.
Right.
Never owned a '57 Chevy though.
Those are cool cars.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, very good. Well, like I said, I appreciate it. I was just curious as to your experience, because again, you've lived that life, and I've lived some of it. But again, I like talking to people that are older than I am, and what it was like, again, because those are great times. I tell people all the time when I work with them, you don't get time back. I can buy land, I can buy cars, I can buy anything I want.
Right.
I cannot buy time.
Yeah.
Time is not for sale.
That's right.
When it's up, it's up. And that's important to understand, so you can cherish what you have in the moment, even though we don't see it, especially as we younger, we don't do it.
Yeah, I've had people asking me, or people will tell me in comments, well, I charge this much per hour.
Yeah.
I charge this much per hour. And I'm thinking to myself, okay, so they're trading their life for
That's right.
for their hour of their life for this amount of money.
Yeah.
You know, so that's why I don't really charge by the hour. You know, I
Sure.
always charge by the job.
Absolutely.
But yeah, right there, you know, time, you can't get it back. You know, once it's gone, it's gone.
That's right.
You know, but when you're 18 years old, you're 26, whatever, right? You think you're invincible, right? You can't die, right? Uh-huh.
Well, I understand that.
Sorry, guys.
Well, I appreciate it, man. Again, I appreciate your time to talk to me about, you know, the startup and all the experience and wisdom that you have, and it's been a great help to me so far, and I continue to watch the videos and learn, and I think again, it's exponential. I could spend the next year or two trying to learn the stuff you've taught me and showed me in this short amount of time, and so it's going to accelerate my ability to be able to turn out a good product for myself and to work on my own cars, and that's what I want. And instead of learning it for years, and so I appreciate it. I appreciate the time.
Well, thank you for stopping by here at the Video Ranch.
Appreciate it, guys. And I'll just see you later.
Okay, thank you so very much for this great interview.
Take care, buddy. We'll see you.
Mm-hmm. Well, my friends, until next time, we'll see ya.